Hey folks, my name is Chloe Brooks, and I want to share an experience that shook me to my core. A story that's not just mine, but speaks to the larger issues of prejudice, resilience, and ultimately the power of change. So grab a seat, preferably in first class, and let's dive in. I'm 28 years old, the daughter of a billionaire, and on this particular trip, I was buzzing with excitement. I was heading to a tech summit to pitch a partnership aimed at bridging the gap in technology careers for underrepresented communities. This was my moment to prove that privilege is just a starting point, not an ending destination. I arrived at the airport dressed like I meant business in my tailored blazer and polished heels. This was my game day, and I was ready to play. As I settled into my first-class seat, I glanced around, soaking in the luxury, the soft leather, the complimentary champagne when I met Brenda Miller, the flight attendant. She looked at me with this mix of suspicion and disdain, and honestly, it struck me wrong. Here I was, just a millennial trying to make a difference, but her eyes were saying, "You don't belong here." It was subtle, almost like a whisper, but it felt deafening. Things took a downward spiral when Brenda, being her charming self, seemed to somehow accidentally spill water all over my lap. Flustered, she gave a half-hearted apology, and it was all like, "Oops, I guess I misjudged the distance." I could feel heat rising, not from the warm water, but from the way she smirked, as if my discomfort was amusing. Seconds later, it escalated. Brenda started rummaging through my things. I couldn't believe it. Her hands were all over my belongings, as if doing a search and seizure because she doubted my right to be there. Now, I'm a pretty chill person, but this wasn't cool. I stood up, squared my shoulders, and said, "Excuse me, I bought this seat. I have every right to be here." Oh, but Brenda wasn't done. "I'm calling security," she declared, throwing out her threats like confetti. So there I was, being humiliated in front of an entire cabin, dragged down to economy class like a criminal. I felt small, belittled, and confused. Who was I? What had just happened? As I slumped into my new cramped seat, an economy passenger beside me leaned over and quietly offered me a bottle of water. "You okay?" he asked, genuine concern in his eyes. His name was Richard Lane, and he turned out to be the CEO of Alavia Airlines. Can you believe it? He had been observing the whole thing. Richard explained that he had been on a mission, an undercover look at his staff's treatment of passengers. "This is unacceptable," he said, his voice steady, "and I'm going to do something about it." His anger gave me hope, and suddenly I didn't feel entirely alone. We left the plane as a duo. Richard was simmering, and I was still trying to process everything. We agreed to meet later at a nearby restaurant, but I still had no idea how deep into this mess we were about to get. When Brenda walked into that restaurant, the atmosphere shifted. You could practically hear the theme music from a Western. There was Richard ready with his questions, and I was sitting there, a witness and participant to my own story. Brenda was a mix of flustered and defensive. Her shaky apology didn't have a shred of sincerity. I, I'm still learning the ropes," she admitted, revealing the truth about her not-so-innocent training. It all made sense. She was a product of a toxic environment. But Richard, with this newfound determination, said, "This isn't about punishment, Brenda. We need systemic reform." He turned to me and suggested we collaborate on a new anti-racism training program for Alavia's staff, led by me. My heart raced. I could see a path forward, maybe even the chance to turn this hurt into something meaningful. Fast forward a bit, and there we all were, Brenda, Richard, and I, standing in front of cameras during a joint press conference. We were announcing a revamped training initiative aimed at addressing discrimination. The public reaction. Let's just say it was a mixed bag. Some were supportive, others accused us of tokenism. But in that moment, I felt powerful. After all the humiliation, it was my voice that was now shaping change, and it didn't end there. One day, a young flight attendant named Tiana reached out to me, inspired by the initiative, and casting aside her doubts about applying for the job. To know that my struggles had led to uplifting someone else, man, that was the moment I realized that change ripples outward. It's bigger than us. As I sit here reflecting on the ups and downs of this journey, I can't help but pose a question for you all. In a situation like mine, would you have fought back or just stayed quiet? What is your take on standing up to injustice versus seeking personal retribution? I want to hear your stories, your thoughts, your experiences in the comments below. Let's get a conversation started about the real issues. Thanks for listening, and remember, every setback is just a setup for a comeback. Keep sparking change, folks.